Hello and welcome to Season A, the platform where we speak truth to power. This document that I have in front of you that you're seeing is very important. Those of you that like to say and espouse one Nigeria, you don't fully understand or comprehend how the so-called one Nigeria came about and why you should be supporting those of us who are clamoring for the complete dismantlement of contraction Nigeria. Once you understand the very reason how we came about, you're more likely to be inclined to agree with us that one Nigeria is indeed a fraud. It is a colonial construct. It is not. Those of you, if you call yourself a Nigerian, you don't own Nigeria. No Nigerian owns any part of Nigeria. It is only a rent collection point for the colonials. Nigeria is a rent collection point for the colonials, and that is the reality. And they're using our people to oppress and suppress us. Whilst we are fighting ourselves, they are taking huge resources from us. We need to realize that's the reality of contraction one Nigeria. Because after all, Nigeria was created on the destruction of African kingdoms, of which I am from, the Yoruba kingdom, or your empire, the old Oyo empire. I am from there. And when you need to speak of the ancestors that were killed, ancestors that were killed, our people that died, and many people that have been suffering from the injustice of the imposition of foreign construct on African land. That's the reality. Now let's go into this document. I want you to really understand this document that you're looking at. This is the document called the Berlin Conference document. I wonder if I have something else here. Let me see if I can show you. And in there it talks about, I'll talk about it, but you can also see a previous video. I'll see if I can put the link in for that video. I'll put the link in for that video in this broadcast. That way you can go and look at that video and then be able to get the message, because I don't want to keep coming in and out. I want to read this document. This is about 14 pages long. That's a treaty. Without this treaty, Nigeria will never have been in existence. The other video talks about how they came about to actually draw this document up. And there's a name that you need to bear in mind, George Goldie. That's a very important name. And also the fact that the British Parliament paid him £865,000 for helping them secure what belongs to Yoruba people, Africans, for them to control and oppress till date. That's the reality. I'm not saying this out of anger. I'm saying what is happening. And because of all of that, many of the artifacts that you see in museums in Britain and everything come from that. They destroyed the Benin Kingdom. It was destroyed. There's no compensation package, nothing. There's no return of they've returned some of the things they stole, but there's still much, much more. These are the kind of things we're talking about. When we talk about that one Nigeria is a fraud and we need to dismantle it, our ancestors never had a hand in it. So let's now look at this document. And in that respect, this document is very, very important, impactful, and powerful. This is a clear evidence of why we should not support one Nigeria. Now, the document says, General Act of Berlin Conference on West Africa, 26th of February, 1885. Signed by the representative of the United Kingdom, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, the United States of America, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, Norway, Turkey, then Ottoman Empire. So you see, that's 14 countries, 14 European countries that came and actually, they carved out Africa. And if you go look in the previous video, it talks about the role played by George Goldie, and they try to hide all of that. So when they tell you at this juncture, when Pastor Adeboye, Pastor Oyedepo, and everybody else, whatever they call themselves, when they say God created Nigeria, you can tell them categorically that it is a lie. This is a British construct. This is nothing. The Most High had nothing to do with the creation of Contraction Nigeria. Contraction Nigeria destroyed Oyo Empire, Benin Empire, Shanghai Empire, destroyed the empires in the East as well, to now put them together to create what you now call Nigeria and impose it upon the people to whom the land belongs, Very important you understand that. Now let's look at this. It now goes into, I'm not read all of it, but I'll show you the thing that is very important. It says here, the General Act of the Conference at the Berlin Conference of the Plenipotentiaries of Great Britain, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and Norway, and Turkey, and the United States, respecting the freedom of trade in the Basin of Congo. 2. The slave trade. 3. Neutrality of the territories in Basin of Congo, navigation of the Congo, navigation of the Niger, and the rules for future occupation on the coast of African continent. So they are talking about occupation. Remember, at no point is any question, anything said about the actual Africans, we the Africans who actually own that land. It's not theirs, it's ours. They are collecting rent on a land they do not own. It is ours, our ancestral land. That's really important to understand now. And they even do it in the gay name of what? In the name of God Almighty. They did that. They took our land over, collecting rent on it, oppressing and suppressing us in our land, enslaving us in the name of God Almighty. And then somebody will come and tell you, God bless Nigeria. Which God? God didn't create Nigeria. He didn't. So I'm drinking something hot because it's very cold and I'm probably going to go in soon. And I might come back later, but right now I need to go, just do this. So, Her Majesty the Queen of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Empress of India. And that's what they called her. And then Her Majesty German Emperor, King of Prussia, His Majesty Emperor of Austria, King of Bohemia, etc., Apostolic King of Hungary, His Majesty King of Belgium, His Majesty King of Denmark, His Majesty King of Spain, the President of the United States, the President of French Republic, His Majesty King of Italy, His Majesty King of Netherlands, Great Duke of Luxembourg, His Majesty King of Portugal and the Algarves, His Majesty Emperor of all the Russias, His Majesty King of Sweden and Norway, etc., His Majesty Emperor of the Ottomans, the Turkish. So they are all there. So when they all pretend, we didn't know this was happening, it's all a lie. They know. This document is proof. Look at the top of it. This document is proof that a treaty, without that treaty, what you call Nigeria now will not be in existence. Very important. And it says West Africa. Look at that. It says West Africa on it. Conference on West Africa. And where is Nigeria? Of course it's in West Africa. And that's what I mean. And that's why I'm telling you, without this treaty, Nigeria will not be in existence. And that's why we're telling you that we need to dismantle contract Nigeria. God did not create Nigeria. And they tell you, the reason why they tell you God created Nigeria is to make sure that you do not discuss and continue to expose the foundations, the fraudulent foundations of contract Nigeria. And we're exposing it for you to see here. The fraudulent foundations. A treaty imposed by those who are coming to another man's land to collect rent on a land they do not own. They enslaved us in our resources that have been taken for free, for peanuts, and they're still doing it till date. It's important we are aware of that. I'll come back again and talk some more. Like I said, I need to just show this, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. It's 14 pages long, so we'll just quickly go through it, but I'm giving you an idea. So now it talks about here, wishing in a spirit of good and mutual accord. So an accord to oppress Africans, mutual good spirit and accord to oppress us in our own land, to regulate the conditions most favorable to the development of trade and civilization in certain regions of Africa. Africa gave the entire world civilization. So what you're trying to do now is to tell a spin. What you're doing is barbarism, to attack the very cradle of civilization, Africans, and you continue to do it since. And we are here to wake people up. So when you talk about Nigeria, Nigeria is a fraud. Here's the evidence we put in before you. Now, let's go into it a bit more. So it says here, swishing in a spirit of good mutual accord to regulate conditions most favorable development of trade and civilization in certain areas of Africa, and assure all nations the advantages of free navigation on two chief rivers of Africa flowing into the Atlantic Ocean, being desirous on the other hand to obviate Let's go and look at what obviate means. I don't want to see obviate. Let's go and look at it. I don't know what it means. Let's just have a look. Obviate. Remove a need or difficulty. The presence of roller blinds obviate the needs of. So to remove. Now, so let's go back again. So we know what the word obviate means. So it says here to obviate the misunderstanding, to remove and dispute which might in future. So they remove the dispute among themselves. So they united in oppressing us. Can you see that is actually communism? When they come together in unity, that is communism carried out against Africans by the oppressors. They united 14 countries. That is definition of communism. That is definition. Let's look at communism. So that when they're telling you the story about communism is a bad thing, they are practicing it. Let's go and look at communism. Let's go into it. Let's go and look at communism. Here we go. Let's go and look at it. So it says here, philosophical and economic identity with current within the socialist. So you see, they're trying to say it's the socialist. So what do you call what they've done here? I don't know. When 14 countries come together, that's a social thing, and they're trying to. That is the very thing that they've done to oppress and suppress us, and we are getting stuck on the words and not looking at the actions that they carried out. Let me show you again. Look at it. At the top of the page, there's 14 countries. That is communism right there. When they communally work together to oppress us. So we shouldn't forget that. These are the realities of what has been done. Now, let's go and look at this a bit more. So it says here, being desirous on the other hand to obviate misunderstanding disputes which might future arise from new acts of occupation, prizes the possession. So you see, they wanted to stop their infighting among themselves. This is why Nigeria, you see, if they had not signed this document, if they had not signed that document, Nigeria would not be in existence. If they had not signed this document that I'm showing you, Nigeria would never have been in existence. They would have been fighting each other till date. But they signed the agreement to agree, okay, you keep that and you can extract from that people, and we will not go. That an agreement among themselves to the exclusion of us, the landowners. You can see the evidence that they are collecting rent for free on our land. That's the evidence I'm putting before you. Research it. Please share this broadcast. The best lawyer in town, get them to look at what I'm saying, and they won't be able to dispute a second of what I've just said. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going with the sheer belief. You see, when truth stands, when truth shines, lies, they are blinded forever. When truth shines, lies are blinded forever. Quote me. So let's go ahead. Now, so let me go. So now we now know. So they that's why I'm telling you, Nigeria could never be in existence if they had not agreed among themselves not to go into that land. So when they tell you Nigeria, it's not. It's just a name for them to be able to take the resources from that area. And that's why I keep telling you, supporting one Nigeria is supporting the continued oppression of our people. We need to dismantle it. Now, so let's go ahead and look a bit more into this now. So, and I might do a live broadcast and talk about this again, but I'm going to start with this one first. So it says here, on the coast of Africa and concerned, and at the same time, as to the means of furthering the moral and material well-being of the native populations. That is the biggest lie going. How can you collecting rent from we the people, taking us as slaves and taking us to foreign land to turn us into slaves forever, to forget our names and everything else, be to our benefit? This is a barefaced lie. The moral and material well-being of the native population, that is a lie, sheer dishonesty. Over 130 years after this debacle of a treaty, Africans are suffering. Africans are leaving Africa believing that they hate the government has actually failed, when it is a system designed to ensure that nothing functions and the resources continues to be extracted to the colonials. It's time we woke up. Nigeria is a fraud. I say it categorically. Now, let's go ahead and look at this now. So, and then it says, have resolved on the invitation addressed to them by the imperial government of Germany in agreement with the French Republic to meet for those purposes in conference at Berlin, have appointed as a representative as their plenipotentiaries to witness. Names of plenipotentiaries included here, who being provided with full power, which have been found in good and due form, have successfully discussed and adopted a declaration. Listen, a declaration to freedom of trade in the basin of Congo. It embutches and circumjacent regions with the other provisions connected therewith. A declaration with the slave trade and the operations by sea or land which furnish slave trade to that trade. A declaration relative to the neutrality of the territories comprised in the conventional basin of the Congo. An act of navigation for the Congo, which, while having regard to local circumstances, extends to this river, its affluents and waters in its current system, each qui les sont assimilés. The general principles enunciated in Articles 58 and 66 of the final act of the Congress of Vienna and intended to regulate as between the signatories of power of that act the free navigation of the waterways separating the traversing several states. These said principles having since then been applied by agreement to certain rivers of Europe and America, but especially due to Danube, with the modifications stipulated by the treaties of Paris 1856 and Berlin 1878 and of London 1871 and 1883. As an act of navigation for the Niger, which likewise, having regard to local circumstances, extend to river and its affluents, the same principles as set forth in Articles 58 and 66 of the final act of the Congress of Vienna. A declaration introducing into the international relations certain uniform rules with reference to future occupation on the coast of the African continent. Future occupation. So when we tell you that Nigeria is a fraud, we are not just saying this. We are giving you clear evidence. I'm not well enough. I really wish I could do this too much. This chronic pain and the cold is getting me. It's annoying me. But I'm giving you information here that you can take to the bank and you can question and you can use it and put this before the very fraudulent parliament we have in continental Nigeria. Nigeria is a fraud and we must dismantle it. Nigeria is not owned by Nigerians. It's owned by the colonials. And until we dismantle it and go and answer to our ancestral names or your empire, Benin, and so forth, so on and so forth, that's what must happen, because Nigeria is a fraud. Let's carry on. So, a dedication introducing the international relations, certain uniform rules with reference to future occupation on the coast of Africa, of the African continent, and deeming it expedient that all several documents which should be combined in one single instrument, the signatory powers, have collected them into one general act composed of the following articles. Can you see that? So this document is one that has brought everything together. Without this document, I am telling you categorically, Nigeria will never have existed, because they would have been fighting among themselves today, destroying themselves, taking it from one to the other, and we the people will be none the wiser. But this document tells us, and I'm telling you, that Nigeria is a fraud. We must dismantle it. Chapter 1. Declaration relative to the freedom of trade in the basin of Congo, its mouths and circumjacent regions with other provisions connected therewith. Article 1. So I want to read through the one that really pertains to Nigeria. So there's 14 pages. I'll see if I can share this with you at some point. See if I can share this with you. But I don't want to necessarily, that's not really the point of what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is to give you information here, and I'll share that on www.citizeny.org to give you the link to this particular thing, because it's very important that we share it. So now, I'm trying to look for the one that pertains to Nigeria. So it's 14 pages long. But what I'm seeing in the first few ones seem to relate to Congo. Again, nonetheless, it's wrong, it's terribly unacceptable, but I want to focus on the one that talks about the area of northern and southern protectorate, so that you can get a clear understanding that without a document, Nigeria will never have even been surfaced, which confirms conclusively that Nigeria was not created by God, but by the colonials. So let's listen to this now. So I'm trying to see. They're still talking about Congo. I'm trying to see the one where it talks about Nigeria, Northern Protectorate. So we're going to see that now. So let's just look at it. No power exercise, sovereign and trade, missionaries. I'm trying to find this thing. So beg your pardon. So Congo, they're still talking about the Congo. So I don't want to. So slave trade. So they talk about slavery here, seeing that trading in slaves is forbidden in conformity with the principle of international law. Now, you see about this slave trade, it's important to understand something. This, if you read it on the face of it, it's seeing that trading in slaves is forbidden in conformity with the principles of international law are recognized by the signatory powers. They're trying to make themselves feel, wow, we're no longer doing in slaves. They replace slavery with total grab, called literally taking the land and the people in it as one, that their own property. We don't own our land. We don't. And it's important we understand that. We are chattels. They made us into chattels in our own land. So when they took somebody away, if it got stolen, they became chattel. That's why they would sell a black man on a plinth. Oh, look, he's strong, a woman, because they've taken our land. When somebody comes and cuts a line across your line, that means that they own your land. That's what it means. And they tell you what to call yourselves in your land, and what name to name the areas. That is why we need to dismantle contract for Nigeria. We must dismantle it forever. Now listen to this now. Let's go ahead. So I'm trying to see declaration related to the neutrality of the territories comprised in conventional basin of Congo. So again, they're trying to sort of, again, it's the same thing that happened in Congo. I'm not minimizing it, no, at all, but I want to focus on the key area where we're going. I'm trying to see, this is about Congo. There's a lot about Congo here, but the West Africa one is the one that I want you to understand that it really has a huge impact and continues to have impact on us today as what you call contract for Nigeria. Now you know that contract for Nigeria is a fraud, and I've given you the basis upon which we need to go and dismantle it, because this was an imposition on the people of your empire, Benin Empire, and all of the Dahomey Empire, and then they dismantled it and broke us up and forced us to be speaking languages which is not our cultural language in our own area. We were forced to learn foreign languages so they can divide and control us. That's the reality. So here we go. So let's go and look at this now. Now, look at this. Act of navigation for the Niger. Act of navigation for the Niger. So the navigation of the Niger without accepting any of its branches and outlets is and shall remain entirely free from the merchant ships of all nations equally, whether the cargo or ballast for the transportation of goods and passengers. It shall be regulated by provisions of the Act of Navigation by the rules made in pursuance of this Act. In this exercise on this navigation, the subjects and flags of all nations shall be treated in all circumstances on a footing perfect equality, not only for the direct navigation from open sea to the inland port of Niger and vice versa, but for the great and small coasting trade, for the boat trade, and of course, and on the course of the river. Consequently, on all course mouths of the Niger, there will be no distinction made between subjects of the riverine states, and those of the riverine states, of non-riverine states, and no exclusive privilege of navigation will be conceded to companies, corporations, or private persons. These provisions are recognized by signatory powers as forming henceforth a part of international law. So in 1865, they agreed among themselves to not fight over our land, but whoever is owned it. That's what they're saying here. This is all in that nobody else will be allowed to go in there. Once they sign this document, it's binding on all of them, including the people to whom they took the land from. You and I, Africans. Now, the navigation of Niger shall not be subject to any restriction or obligation based merely on the fact of navigation. It shall not be exposed to any obligation in regard to landing, station, or depot, or breaking bulk for the compulsory entry into port. In all extent of the Niger, the ships should be and goods in process of transit on river shall be submitted to no transit dues, whatever their starting place or destination. You see, there's no starting, nothing. So that means that if we were to try and do this, that's what they were doing to our people. It's important to understand what I'm explaining to you here. I'm no shipping expert, but they gave themselves free rein. Whatever they took in, took out, nobody could collect dues. Particularly the people to whom the land belongs. I keep telling you, because of that agreement, if they hadn't signed an agreement, they would have been fighting till date on it. And they would have been oppressing us in our land. Now we know wiser, we need to take collective action to free ourselves. It's our land. It's our land. Now, here we go here. So it shall not be exposed on any bulk obligation in regard to landing station depot or for breaking bulk compulsory entry into a port. In all the extent of Niger, the ships and goods and services in process of transit on the river shall be submitted to no transit dues, whatever their starting place or destination. No maritime or river shall be levied based on the sole fact of navigation, nor any tax on goods on board ships. There shall only be collected taxes due, which shall be an equivalent for services rendered on to navigation itself. The tariff on these taxes or duties shall not warrant any differential treatment. Now, all of this is to the exclusion of we, the people to whom the land belongs. This is an imposition yet again. This is an imposition. I'm showing you the treaty document that brought about, that they used to create contract for Nigeria. Because without that, they would have been fighting themselves over our own land. It's important we understand that. Now, let's go and read on. So I'm just wanted to read you about Niger. Please, because I rushed through the Congo, does not mean that it's not significant. It is extremely significant. They are both equally significant. But for the purposes of explaining why we must dismantle contract for Nigeria, we are focusing squarely on agreements reached in the 1885 Berlin Conference, West Africa agreement, a treaty that they signed that has changed the lives of you and I till date. Now, let's go and look at it now. The affluent of Niger shall be in all aspects subject to the same rules as river, which they are attributes. You see, they're making agreements, without us there. Then this is an imposition. The roads and railways and lateral canals may be constructed with the special object of obviating the innavigability and correct of imperfection of the river route on certain sections of the course of the Niger. Its affluent branches and outlets shall be considered in their quantity of means of communication as dependencies of this river and as equally open to traffic of all nations. So they made it open to all nations. They've agreed to themselves at our expense. This is as one of the rivers itself, as on the river itself, so they shall be collected on those roads, railways, canals, only tolls calculated on the cost of construction, maintenance and management and on the profits due to the promoters. So all of this is being done. This is our resources being taken. Are you sure you still want to continue supporting One Nigeria? Because if you keep supporting it, the people who created it are the ones who are benefiting till date. We need to dismantle it. As regards the tariff on the tolls, strangers and the natives and the respective territories shall be treated on a footing of perfect equality. Which perfect equality? We are oppressed in our own land. All that is just nonsense. You see? Great Britain undertakes to apply principles of freedom of navigation enunciated in the articles 26, 27, 28, and 29, and on so much of the waters of the Niger, its affluent branches and outlets, and as her or may be under her sovereignty or protection. Can you see that? So they use forcible means to oppress the people who own the land, and they give themselves that power. And you're telling us to support, and they impose on you and I in Nigeria. That's the reality of what I'm telling you here. Now, the rules which she may establish for the safety and control of navigation shall be drawn up in a way to facilitate as far as possible the circulation of merchant ships. So all of it is to ensure the free movement for them. We, the people to whom this land is built, we had no say, none whatsoever. Again, I'm saying categorically, Nigeria was an imposition on us, and here's a document to prove it, and we need to dismantle it. Okay. So Great Britain undertakes to protect foreign merchants. So they protect the foreign merchants and trade nationals on all these portions of Niger, which are or may be under our sovereignty or protection, as if they were her own subjects, provided always that such merchants conform to the rules which are or shall be made in virtue of the foregoing. So they are even protecting. We, the indigenous people, are not protected in our own land. They are protecting themselves. That's communism again, isn't it? That is communism. Would you agree? That is the definition of when you come together as a group of people, a nations coming together. That's communism. So when they tell you capitalism, this is nonsense. It's a lie. It's a play with words. It's time we woke up. Now, each of the signatory powers binds itself the same way in case it should ever exercise in future rights of sovereignty or protection over any portion of the waters in the Niger, its affluents and branches or outlets. The arrangement of this present act of navigation will remain in force in time of war. Consequently, the navigation and all neutral belligerent nations will be in all time free for the use of commerce of Niger and its branches and its affluents, its mouth and outlets, as well as the territorial waters opposite the mouths and outlets of that river. The traffic will remain equally free in spite of the state of war on the roads, railways, and canals mentioned in Article 29. They even agreed war. The treaty agreed for war. So so you can now see all of this stuff when they were doing the Biafran war. No doubt that would have come into play. That would have come into play. So they were asking. This is. How long gonna go suffer? How long gonna go to suffer? Let's read on. I'm cold like crazy now, but this is a point that I've thought. So this definitely impacted the Biafran war. Remember, the Russians were supplying weapons, the US and others were supplying them, and they gave themselves freedom. That they weren't attacking each other because of this agreement. Are you following me? It has a very strong likelihood that is the case. Because they didn't want to fight themselves. They wanted us to be fighting ourselves. Are you following me? Now, so there will only be an exception to this article in that which relates to the transport of articles designed for belligerent considered virtue of laws of nations and as an article contraband of war. Declaration in relative to these essential conditions to be observed in order that new occupations on the coast of the African continent may be held to be effective. Any power which henceforth takes possession on a tract of land on the coast of African continent outside its present positions, or which, being hitherto without such possession, shall acquire them, as well as powers which assumes a protectorate, there shall have a company in the respective act with non-notification thereof addressed to the other signatory powers of the present act, in order to enable them, if need be, to make good any claims of their own. You see, they made arrangement for this. Is why, let me quickly go and show you. I need to go and please, you need to watch the other video and I'll see if I can show you something. The Northern and Southern Protectorate, this guaranteed that when they created it, it meant that the French, they were still trying. The French and the Germans couldn't really dismantle it because of this agreement that they signed among themselves, to the exclusion of us, the locals, the people who own the land. The signatory powers of the present act recognize the obligation to ensure the establishment of authority in the region occupied by them on the coast of African continent, sufficient to protecting existing rights, and as the case may be, freedom of trade and of transit under the conditions agreed upon. Can you see? I mean, this is the signatory powers of the present General Act reserve themselves to introduce to it subsequently and by common accord such modifications and improvements as experience may show to the expedient. The powers who may not have signed the present General Act shall be free to adhere to its provisions by a separate instrument. The addition to of each power shall be notified in diplomatic form to the government of the German Empire, and by it in turn to all the other signatories or adhering powers. Such adhesion shall carry with it full acceptance of all obligations as well as admission or to all the advantages stipulated by the present General Act. The present General Act shall be ratified with as little as delay as possible, the same in no case to exceed a year. It will come into force for each power from the date of its ratification by that power. Meanwhile, the signatory powers of the present General Act bind themselves not to take any steps contrary to its provisions. Can you see? Can you see that Nigeria is a fraud? Can you see that? When they're telling you, this is an important document that has been hidden from you and I. When they tell you Nigeria was created by God, it's a lie. You can see. I'm going into this in detail for you so you can understand. Now let's see. So this is the document here that talks about, the ratification of all powers will be deposited in the archives of the government of the German Empire. When all ratifications have been sent in, there shall be a drawn-up deposit act in the shape of protocol to be signed by the representatives of all the powers which have taken part in the Conference of Berlin, and which a certified copy will be sent to each of these powers. In testimony whereof the several plenipotentiaries have signed the present General Act and have affixed thereto their seats. Done at Berlin, 26th of day of February 1885. Can you see that? So, those of you speaking and shouting one Nigeria is a fraud. One Nigeria was as a result of a Berlin Treaty, 1865, signed by all of the 14 European countries who agreed. See that? General Act of Berlin Conference on West Africa, 26th of February 1885. Without that, Nigeria will not be in existence. I want you to really consider this. Those of you watching this broadcast, I'm probably going to come back and talk about this again live. I want you to consider strongly the content of what I've just showed you. Nigeria is a fraud. I'm going to put the link in to how they got about the point where George Goldie was the man that they used, the front for the British, in dismantling and destroying the African kingdoms, ensuring that they remained subservient and occupied long enough for them to now have this treaty come into effect. And that is why they gave you Nigeria. Without that, it's nothing about Flora Show. All that is a ruse. This is the key document. Without this document, Nigeria will not be in existence. When you get this broadcast, please share, and share. It's really important we understand this. It is damning. It is sickening. When you get this broadcast, please share, and share. This document, this is about the General Act of the Berlin Conference, is what has actually brought about what you call Nigeria. And you need to understand that. It's nothing to do with a god or anything. It's the fact that this is an oppression. Nigeria is a fraud that we must dismantle. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Citizen AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. Please don't forget to subscribe to Citizen AY. Hit the notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Help us share this broadcast to reach more people. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me see. And also, whatever you can do to help, the account number is on the screen to help us. But the best thing you can do for us is to get your friends and family to subscribe to us. Help us grow the platform. So let's go on to this now. So please subscribe, hit notification button, give us a thumbs up to help us to reach more people. We really appreciate your support. Let's continue to spread the awareness. This topic specifically talks about this is a document that has been hidden from you and I. So when you get this broadcast, please do share it. I will include the link for the previous broadcast that talks about this document briefly. But this is the document. This is a 14-page document that I just went through, and the key points I have highlighted. And it tells you, without this document, they will not. The colonial powers will not be able to put in place what you call Nigeria. We didn't create Nigeria. Our ancestors did not create Nigeria. This was an imposition. Here's the proof. Please scrutinize the document. Watch it, and read through, listen again to it, pause it, and play it again. Look at those 14 names on the screen. They are the ones that brought to life that contraction called Nigeria. Because once they made the agreement, whatever UK decided to call themselves, the others will respect it, and that is what's happening. Nigeria is nothing to do with us. Nigeria is a name created by the colonials, and it's for their benefit. We must dismantle it and go back to our ancestral names, or your empire must rise. Benin Empire, if they so, which must, but Oyo Empire, which we now call Yoruba Nation, will rise, and we need to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Citizen Network, the platform where we speak truth to power. Please, when you get this podcast, please share, and share. Also, don't forget, go ahead and subscribe and download How Long on YouTube and on Spotify, and help raise the awareness. The song How Long Gonna Get So Far is going on in the background. Thank you for watching. You're watching Citizen Network, the platform where we speak truth to power. I'll be back later on. Thank you and goodbye. Bye for now.